2022, a winner of probably the second biggest amateur race in the world. He won it, and he won it super convincingly, like really dominant performance. He wouldn't have finished, he would have been lucky to finish in the top 10 to 12 at last year's Baby Giro.
This is AI That Works by Exeta, where real stories of AI and data meet business reality.
In professional cycling, vast amounts of data are collected. But it's not just about collecting the data, it's also about knowing what to do with it and driving decisions from it. Welcome back to AI That Works, the Exeta podcast about AI and data. In this episode, we will talk to John Wakefield from Red Bull BORA hansgrohe about data-driven decision-making and what goes into it. Maybe first, who gets access to the data? Does every rider get their report or maybe even action already from the data automatically? Or do you get to look at it, and does it take your experience to make a call to action, to reason on what is presented and then have adjustments made? Who is involved in the cycle?
So rider has access to his data. So if we call it, his access is freely available to training files, etc. So whatever he does on the bike, on and off the bike, he has full access to it. Essentially, it's his data, so we can't stop him looking at that data, and we never will. It's what the coach, if we take it, what I take Florian's data, I analyze the data on my own, and then I would report back to him if need be on, hey, this is A, B, or C, or D, E, and F. If it's a report, we do have obviously reporting, but that is typically for management and stuff like that. We do obviously report back to riders at the same time. So it's not that they have the ability to analyze to the degree that we do or create reports that we do, because we have that on a separate software system, but they have access to, all their sleep data, their wellness data, their training files, their race files, etc.
How interested are they? I guess it might be different because it's an interesting sport, and
Sure.
I have many colleagues. I feel like techie people also like bike riding. So, and the data collection is fun. And then you look at it, and then you try, instead of getting better sleep or doing the obvious things, you tweak at little things in your training. How interested, how involved are the athletes?
Some are very involved, and some, to be honest, you say, oh, that was really good, and they're like, thanks. That's where it ends. But then some, you really do go into a deep dive because they have an interest or a passion or whatever, and they're super involved in it. And then you do get some which are just like, hey, I trust you. I feel good on the bike, so I don't need to worry about it myself. It sort of takes an element away from them. So it really throws in between.
This or that.
We have a few little games that we want to play, or repeating segments. And the first one will be this or that, where we want to get your opinion. Which one do you prefer if you had to choose one?
Okay.
The first one would be quality over quantity, which is always interesting with regards to data. Would you rather have more data, or would you rather go more in depth and have a higher quality of the range of data that you already have?
Always quality over quantity.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that means you already have just so much, or just because it's much more relevant?
It's more relevant. So you can have a whole lot of data that essentially does nothing for you just because you have a high volume of it, where you want to do quality data at the end of the day. So if I give an example, you can have a huge, 3 terabytes of an athlete's data, whether it's training files as an example. You can have 6 years of data, but you only want to take out that quality of data that's in it. So at the end of the day, you want quality over quantity because you want to make informed decisions, which are pretty important, especially in the performance environment.
And at your level, obviously, it's like the margin for error is very, very small. Okay, would you rather do faster development cycles or have more time per development cycle to go in depth and perfect things? So higher iteration speed over getting things exactly right.
Can I choose both of those? Because that's essentially what you want. So, okay, run that by me again so I can think.
So you can iterate faster. So you could try out a thing and then just run a new thing every day versus having a metric and just really go into the detail, have a long cycle. I guess in your field, it's like there's a season, there's maybe a training cycle. Would you rather have them shorter and do more, or do you wish you had more time per season?
Yeah, you always want more time at the end of the day, because if you have time, you have the quality that you can do, so you don't rush through things. So if you don't have that luxury, you want it to be done as quick as possible with that final outcome.
And personally, would you like more days in the week or longer days?
Longer days is what I would like.
So you can get an extra training session in or get some sleep?
Yeah, correct. So like by Monday afternoon, I'm not already doing Tuesday's work. So I can finish Monday's work and finish off and then have Tuesday. So I would rather have longer days than extra days.
Okay. Is there a big difference throughout the week for you, or is it just training days and then training cycles?
Yeah, every day is essentially the same, Monday to Sunday.
Okay.
It's not that, I know some people go home on a Friday and they go to the beach and stuff. I may go to the beach, but it's not like that thing,
So you could go to the beach equally each day.
Correct.
We just talked about decision making, how data is used for it. Do you have a good summary on what are the key factors? How do you use data to make decisions?
We make decisions based on obviously what we see. So whether it's benchmarks, performance factors, historical data, as I said, on how we got here, what we see, etc. That is really important. In terms of what our benchmarks or how we analyze that, not really going to say on the podcast now, but data-driven is a big decision maker in terms of what we do. And then we couple that, again, as I said, to the human side of the athlete. And what our scouting group, as I said, is Tim and Michael, what they see in the athlete, do we correlate it? And then we go from there. Because sometimes, as I said, you see really not the best data, but the rider's performing, or vice versa, So those two make really important decisions. But essentially, I hand over what I see in the data, and then they go from there.
How would you say has the role of scouting changed since you've introduced more data-driven decision-making?
I think it's fine-tuned it to make it a lot more, how do you say, just because 10 kids are winning bike races, it doesn't mean that those 10 kids have a future. Where now you take those 10 kids that are winning a bike race, but you probably only really take 4 of them, or you are interested in 4 and you kind of watch the other 5 or other 6 kind of progress over time. So it's helped, I won't say sift out non-talent, but just make a more correct, informed, specific decision, especially on how modern cycling is in today's times.
And the traditional scouting of having people assess riders is still a key aspect.
Yeah, 100%. But you definitely need the two to talk to each other and come to an agreement. Like, I don't believe you can only do one without the other now.
Is there ever a big disagreement? Does it not align the assessment?
Not a lot, but sometimes yes. Example, the other day I said, hey, to our scouts, I said, there's really nothing here that blows my hair back. What do you see in the races? And they were like, no, he's really performing well. So there then it goes to a bit of a deeper discussion. We had that last year as well, where it was almost opposite, really phenomenal numbers. But from a human side, we didn't really feel he could do what, nothing to do with numbers, but just from a human side, we didn't feel that he would carry this through all the way through. So, it does, that marriage needs to be really good.
And how can you, if a cyclist is not already on your roster, assess, I guess that's through conversation at some point, that you can assess attitude, motivation, mindset?
Yeah, correct. So typically how the process would work, there'd be identification of the athlete, then the scout would say, hey, we're interested, whatever, can we get access to your data? We'd get access, I'd give my feedback back, and then from there it normally goes to, should there be interest, then it goes to the actual scouting one-on-one phone call or meeting with the rider, parent, agent, whatever, whoever's in the call. And that goes into a more deeper dive in terms of that human.
I can ask you questions all day and we can go in, because also you cover all the fields. Or what was your current carb number that because it's funny how cycling, I feel like, is influencing running, because the runners for many years were still on like 30 grams an hour or something.
Yeah.
And then it's like, you guys are taking how much?
Yeah.
And now I think through triathlon, the information on the carb intake is like moving over. And
it's definitely increased even in cycling from what it was before. Even in cycling before, it was a fairly low volume of per hour. But what you got to also remember, whether you're a triathlete, a runner, a cyclist, and that is, you can say, I do 120 grams an hour, which is, it's a high volume of carbs. But if your body, you can take it in, but if your body doesn't actually absorb it and use it as a fuel source, you kind of just going to the toilet afterwards, so it's it really, there again, really specific to the athlete. Yes, you can train your gut to absorb more, but there will be a ceiling where you just don't take it in.
On that note, what are your iterations? Like, how often do you adjust? How often do you give input in your training planning? Do you make a program for 6 weeks and then I see you again? Is it daily, hourly? What's your cadence?
Typically a week, but you change to so I'll build your program for a week, and as an example, you come back from training today and it really wasn't good. We understand why, and then I'll change it for tomorrow. So it's built for a week, but it's adaptable day by day.
I have one more question about race day. Because are you moving along are you in the car with the laptop on your lap, or in the control room? How can I picture data-driven decision-making?
So that's normally pre and post. So it's not always in race, although sometimes, yes, I get a phone call or a coach gets a phone call, hey, give us this performance outcome, and you would give it in the race to the sporting director. However, a lot of it is done pre and then directly post. So the pre-race would be, this is what the game plan is. These are the scenarios. We give the information, whether it's something as easy as climbing times on Tourmalet, what we think the peloton will do, and we do the calculations, or historical values, or whatever it may be, crosswinds coming up, etc. But then post-race, it's full kind of analysis, feedback on the performance side of it from that data, and then we make decisions for the next day based off that.
We just got a brief view into how data is processed at Red Bull BORA hansgrohe. Thank you for watching and listening, and make sure to listen to the next episode and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
This was AI That Works. Real stories from the people making data and AI work in the real world.